1. So, my stalker is my ex-daughter's mother. We met in the end of 2019 and hit it off. We were trading worst ex stories, and he was telling me how anytime he tried to date someone, that as soon as she found out, she'd immediately start telling their daughter that her dad was trying to replace mommy, and would make their daughter hate whoever he was dating. Some backstory. It was probably about 6 months into dating when I met his daughter. Or our daughters meet, because we randomly bumped into each other at Target. His daughter and mine hit it off, and they were both asking for a playdate. We agreed that in front of his daughter we'd always just come across as friends, so maybe she'd get to know me really well before her mom tried to ruin it. He had joint custody with mom, but was only legally allowed 2 days a week, because unemployed baby mama claimed his job as a corporate pilot gave him an unstable work schedule, which wasn't accurate. When he'd bend over backwards for her, she'd give him more days, but any time he put up boundaries, she forced him to obey the court order. As you can imagine, when baby mama found out he and I had been together for 2 years without her knowing, she flipped. She started deep stalking me, trying to find anything on me she could. It was 2021 at this point. His daughter was having her first baby after COVID restrictions were a lot less strict, and wanted to invite my daughter. When she showed up, I met mom. She was very polite to me in person. About 2 weeks after the party, she called me one morning, even though I'd never given her my number. She was trying to fish for information by giving me weird backhanded compliments, telling me things like her ex says he liked me but I wasn't relationship material, so she was just wondering what we were exactly. Saying that he was such a great guy, and I'd had a hard childhood, so he must feel sorry for me, implying a child I was caring for was our secret love baby. I had already heard for 2 years about how she was, so I didn't even act offended. I took on the attitude of, well, that's weird, in a somewhat condescending tone as I responded, but I responded in a very cheerful manner. Like when she told me she had an investigator look into me because I attended her daughter's birthday. I just replied with, that's kind of weird. Did you investigate all guests, or was I just special? Anyways, after this very weird phone call, my boyfriend obviously flipped, and called her screaming, demanding to know who she thought she was. After that, her alienation of his daughter started. I had a hunch she was easily embarrassed and wanted to ruffle her feathers for her very intruding call. Up until that point, I had never been in any Las Vegas parenting group nor had any interest. But I decided to look in each group at the members, and then I joined every single group she was in. I then threw up a very vague post describing what happened after the party. I never mentioned her name, but I acted like I cared what people thought, and I just didn't want to ever unintentionally offend anyone. So what would the proper protocol be for playdates if someone had been in the adult industry for a year when they were 20? I made sure to clarify that I made a total of between 13 to 15 movies, with the majority being solo scenes, so basically like OnlyFans today. I was never well known either. Y'all, her own friends were commenting what a piece of crap woman this must be who had done this to me. Not one person was on her side. In every group, my post was at the top of the page. A few parents that knew her private messaged me and asked if my post was about her, when I was like I wasn't going to name her, but yeah. I'm guessing she gossiped about me, and that's why you knew? They told me she had been sharing links for my old movies for like a week, and telling parents that I had a job at a private school under a false identity, and was no different than a drug dealer, child trafficker, or molester. None of any of that was true. I'd had to go under an FBI background check, get fingerprinted, and get a sheriff's card for childcare. As you can imagine, things got worse and worse. My once perfect and happy relationship became this weird reality of feeling like I was watching my best friend slowly die of some type of cancer. She had affected his relationship with his daughter so much that there was a period of maybe 5 or 6 months where she was advocating for her mommy, and Daddy was a horrible bully, and she didn't want to be with him. It broke his heart. He stopped wanting to go out and have fun like we had been. For 3 more years we tried to get back to that happy and carefree existence, but she had mentally screwed him so much that he had a fear of her starting another smear campaign against him if she saw he was happy again. We went from talking every day, all day long, when we were apart, to maybe a text here or there. She continued to stalk all my social media, make fake dating profiles for me, and send random men to my work because they thought they'd been talking to me and were going on a coffee date, to signing me up for insurance quotes and other BS. My boyfriend begged me not to react and ignore her, so for 3 years I tried not to react. Sometime I'd throw up a post on Nextdoor to annoy her. Maybe something like flowers my boyfriend had got me, or raving about a great place we'd just discovered. But I never really went after her. This year I just couldn't do it anymore. The man I loved just isn't there and is a shell of his former self. I'd stayed hoping things could go back to normal, or that maybe I could get him to try therapy. I tried to get him to go out with friends again and to spend more time with his family, but he just wouldn't, and you can't help someone that won't help themselves. We ended it, obviously, and I told him I couldn't be friends. So yeah, I bought her domain and made a website, and have been posting all the horrible texts she'd sent him and that he'd shared with me. I posted the most ridiculous talking parents messages and added a blog where I wrote about some of the most unhinged things she did. I found all the worst pictures of her. I made sure to put a statement on the footer of the website that it was a parody, and everything stated was done in my most honest opinion, but that all screenshots and court documents were as if and factual. Every day I send more and more parents a link to the site. If you Google her name, it's the first result that pops up now. I've gone into the screenshot images and changed the file names to her name and even implemented SEO in all posts and photos. I'm waiting for the new Garfield movie to come out at the end of this month, because I paid for advertising space at the movie theater, and her website will be advertised. I have 5 years' worth of her crazy behavior in text to prove it, and every day I spend about 10-15 minutes adding another snippet to her site. Two, I am a student at a university. I am 35 years old and have a house in a different town, but I'm currently living part-time in a student corridor. The corridor was built in 1955. Sounds will travel through the building. I'm a quiet type of neighbor. Almost never listen to music, mostly study on my computer. I read and drink tea. Lots of tea. Most of the time I'm not even there. Only a few days a week or month. In my area, this is the cheapest accommodation you can find. It does its job. I'm quite happy about it. Then a new neighbor moved in below. One day she knocked on my door and asked me if I used the new furniture cups she gave me. What furniture cups? The one I left in your mailbox. I explained to her that my mail comes to my house, meaning I only check the mailbox once a month or so. To get the student newspaper, I get the furniture cups and put them on my chair. She left them together with a note about me making loud, inappropriate sounds. I do not. Whatever, I'll use them if it helps her. Fact about the chair itself is part of the room. Since I rent it furnished, I am not buying an office chair on wheels for her sake. Not happening. One day later, she finds me on Facebook and is upset my chair is still making sound. She also informs me to stop moving furniture around. I do not understand what she is saying. She also states she wants to compromise by asking me to sleep at the same time as her. 10 in the evening to 8 in the morning. I inform her this will not happen. However, I will get a carpet. She says it's not fair I get to make sound so that she can't sleep. Says that it makes it impossible for her to focus on her lectures every day. Next time I'm at my house, I take a small carpet with me. When I get back, she still complains about the sound and wants me to study sitting in bed. I inform her I will not do this. Not that she has anything to do with it, but I have an actual permanent back injury affecting my nerves and I will not study in bed. I need a chair. She starts banging at every ceiling every time I make a move. If I use my kettle, if I use my chair, if I even use the bathroom. She obviously wants me to be as quiet as I am when I am not there. Then she complains to the landlord. They email me about it being prohibited to make sounds between 10 in the evening to 8 in the morning. I explain politely to the landlord that the girl downstairs is insane. They are understanding and inform me they will try to speak with her. I also check her Facebook profile. It says she is studying law. For some reason, I find this kind of funny, because she acts like the loud sound rule can be used to interfere with me actually using my room like a normal person, and has quoted the landlord's rules about loud sounds after 10 like it's Swedish law or something. It is not, and it would take a lot more for the landlord to do anything. She also reminds me about lawyers I have spoken to in my work life that try to use their title to get better treatment than normal clients and threaten you if you don't comply. Yesterday I got back from my house after 3 weeks studying from there because I need to get some seminars, examination and stuff. 20 minutes past 10, she starts making banging sounds at the ceiling. I am 35 years old. I normally go to sleep at midnight at the latest. I am not some party animal like some of my other neighbors, who are nice people, by the way. I have no real plans to begin living like when I was 20 and was up all night. Well, I guess I'm not studying in the mornings like I planned to. I'm going to begin studying at night every time I am here, and especially if she starts hitting her ceiling. Usually the courses I go to begin quite late in the day, so this is not an issue. I blocked her on Facebook. Hellfreezer's note. Here's what I want you to do. Every time she makes noise, starts banging on the ceiling, complaining and all that, record it. I'm not sure what consent laws are like where you live, but you're in your own apartment, you're just recording sounds in your own apartment. I would hope that'd be legally okay. And then, once you've got a bunch of that collected, play it back for the landlord. With any luck, they'll put the fear of God up her. Or, if she doesn't settle down, kick her out. Also, someone should probably tell her that noise-cancelling headphones and earplugs exist. Wonderful inventions. 3. I recently moved house to start a new suburb and had to resign from my job. I really don't like sitting at home waiting for the right work to land in my lap, so I really don't mind if I just do some interim work, even if it's low-paying, unskilled work. So I applied to several labor jobs in construction and manufacturing, expressing my interest in doing paid trial shifts to find something to keep busy while I sent out applications for the work I am most familiar with, which is work health and safety, risk environments. A small family-owned manufacturing business contacted me back accepting my offer for a paid trial shift. They manufacture aerosol products. I worked the day. The place was a mess. There were no safety procedures in place. They were using a combustion forklift with no spark arrestor to carry gas, and flammable chemicals around in a giant warehouse full of them and under-pressure vessels. I initially thought to myself, some room for improvement here, but it's not what I applied for, so I shut my mouth and carried out the work that I was there to do. They had been operating for 40 years, so I figured I could wait till the end of the day. Within 2 hours of arriving, they told me they would like me to work the whole week and talk about remuneration on the Friday. It was Monday. I told them that was not acceptable and I would like to discuss the job with them at the end of the day, to which they agreed. Basically, I was not prepared to work on a bomb site unless they were prepared to work towards a safer environment. They had teenage girls working there who just don't realize how dangerous the premises were. They rely on management to have that sorted. At 2 p.m., all management left for the day, unannounced 3 hours before I was scheduled to finish. So here I am with 2 young women boxing products for dispatch. I haven't given payment information, and I now can't discuss anything with anyone in person. I sent an email to the person I had already been chatting to, letting them know that I wouldn't be continuing, and gave them my account details for payment for the day's work. I got no response, so I sent a follow-up email and still no response a week later. I checked their Google profile and they had one other review from a company, saying they had sent labor or hire employees to the site who had not been paid and had been bullied. I figured that since they have already gotten away with it, there was no point in being amicable. So I shot an email out with 10 different deficiencies I had noticed within the business to the work safety regulator. I got an email back saying they attended the site and have issued directives regarding the storage, handling, and use of chemicals, noting that it would be a significant body of work for the business. They have also been giving directives to install handrails on the mezzanine level, and have been issued an order to provide the maintenance logs for the forklift, and there were directives issued in relation to the manufacturing equipment, essentially costing them anywhere from 10 to 30,000 in directives. A day after I got the response from the regulator, I sent a letter of demand for the $250 to $300 they owe me, and made a claim with the regulator that handles legal and unethical issues between employers and employees. And I left them a 1-star Google review. Edit. They came to the table and paid me. I also removed the 1-star review. I do believe they realized not paying people money they worked for could potentially be more trouble than it's worth. 4. My country is one of the few nations that has mandatory military service. All able-bodied male citizens get tested, drafted, and serve a certain time in the armed forces. Females can volunteer. Having said that, naturally, army service isn't for everyone. Excluding the medically accepted psychological and physical reasons, there is also a sizable number of people who, for one reason or another, simply don't want to. These people can join civil protection, which is much more laid back. If someone is declared double unfit for military and civil protection, they simply have to pay some of their income every year to make up for it. I was, long time ago, in charge of a company in recruit school. In general, most young men simply accept military service as their citizen duty. They come, serve their time, and then leave. Always with a new set of skills, often with new friends for life, and mostly with better fitness and discipline. If someone is into it and wants to rise up the ranks, it's like the cherry on top. But when this particular school started, I got the opposite. A recruit called Klaus. Klaus was a certified bellend and a moron. It was obvious that he didn't really want to do his military service. It was equally obvious that he had been too dumb to be declared double unfit, which isn't hard. All he would have to do is state during assessment that he refuses to serve and will cause massive problems. The recruiting division would have dumped him with little regret. He didn't, and became my problem. Training Klaus was akin to bathing a cat. Though he was smart enough to know how to refuse complying without subjecting himself to disciplinary measures, in the end he would always do his assigned tasks. But his laziness, his bad attitude, and disdain for the work itself, his instructors, and even his comrades dragged the whole company down. After about 6 weeks, the solution presented itself. Klaus must have learned from somewhere that becoming a firearms-hating uber-pacifist would grant him early release. He came to me and rattled off a badly rehearsed monologue about how the army was a bunch of murderers. My country hasn't fought in a war in centuries. How just looking at firearms made him sick, and that he was developing PTSD from firing them during training. There are positions in the armed forces where one can serve without a firearm, and I should have tried to convince him to switch to one of those positions. But I didn't want to burden another company commander. I wanted Klaus gone. But at the same time, I wanted to have the ammo for payback, just in case the opportunity presented itself. I had Klaus write his thoughts down and sign the papers. Then I condensed it all into a single sheet and had him sign that one as well. Klaus was then put on cleaning duty until the personnel division decided 1 week later that he wasn't worth the squeeze. Klaus was declared double unfit and rejoined 1st Civil Division. It would come back to bite him later. Military service no longer occupies the same position within my country's society as it did 50 years ago. But some employers still place value on it. One of them is the police. Military service for males is no longer required to become a police officer, but the police will be very curious about the reasons you didn't serve. If you were declared unfit during assessment, it is fairly easy to simply put it down to you being young and immature. But getting kicked during basic training is a whole different story. 1 year after Klaus had left, a police agency contacted us. Klaus had applied to them, and they were curious to know why he left during basic training. They were supplied with all the explanations they needed, and all were signed by Klaus. Klaus never became a cop. Not in that agency nor any other. How could he? Just looking at a gun gives him the creeps after all. I received a very angry email from him shortly after he got rejected. I contemplated writing him back, but then realized that I was fresh out of pity. 5. So my kid brother got married 12 years ago this year. Being non-religious, they got married and had the reception at a tithe barn at a country house. Thinking for something different for their wedding present, my dad decided that instead of getting several wedding cars for them, he'd hire one car to take them from the venue to their hotel, and as a surprise, hire a helicopter to take the bride and her dad from my parents' place where she was getting ready. Her family is from down south, to the venue. Then after the ceremony, the newlyweds, her immediate family and ours would each get a 10-minute flight. So me, set out looking for a helicopter hire. We find this one company. They survey my parents' place to make sure they can get in and out. We have a 6-acre field adjoining their garden, or driveway. And do the same at the venue, confirm all is okay, and my dad signs the contract, and we pay the 50% deposit. 3 weeks before the wedding, they ring back and decide they can't actually get the helicopter into either the venue or our field, and would be cancelling the hire and would be refunding the deposit when they do their next invoice pay run at the end of the month. Cue my old man losing it and by the end of the day getting his money back. What followed was a mad scramble to find another helicopter firm, which in rural Lancashire aren't exactly to be found on every street corner. After a fraught couple of days, we find another firm who are more than happy with getting in and out at both places, are cheaper and more relaxed than the initial firm. When we told them why we were booking it last minute, they told us that we weren't the first that they'd heard of being let down by that firm. Here's where the petty and honestly unintentional revenge comes in. Back then, I was a frequent contributor to a car forum. I'll call Mark's Car Nerd Forum, which is how my wife referred to it. Not a massive one at most, I think we had about 70 members, but it was ours. One guy sorted out setup, and we each bunged him a $5 a year to admin it. There were half a dozen sub-forums where we chat about motor shows, new car launches, F1, etc., and one invite-only VIP area. Anyway, out of frustration, I posted on the open pages about how angry I was and stressed. We'd been over the whole thing with a post title of "Beelzebub's Heli Tours are a bunch of absolute fart-breathing morons." This actually took place in England, so obviously I didn't say that, but I'm sure you can imagine what I really said. Nothing I wrote was untrue. I just laid out the facts of what they did and the stress it put us through a couple of weeks before the wedding. Of course, the guys all chimed in support about how terrible we'd been treated, until someone pointed out that we, as a forum, had paid for Google ranking boost, and that if someone searched for a particular thing, say Lamborghini Gallardo, then our forum would be on Google page 1 because one of us had posted about it. So everyone changed their post to start with a version of, "What's that? Beelzebub's Heli Tours are a bunch of fart-breathing morons?" Within a day, if you searched Beelzebub Heli Tours on Google, one of the top results on page 1 was a link titled, "Beelzebub's Heli Tours are a bunch of absolute fart-breathing morons." Eventually, one of the directors of the firm emailed the forum admin demanding the post was removed, as it was damaging his firm's reputation. David, the admin, told him that unless he could provide irrefutable proof that my version of events was in any way incorrect, then the post would be staying up. This was followed by various threats of legal action, to which Dave responded by locking the post with the message, "Beelzebub's Heli Tours have threatened to sue Mark's Car Nerd Forum to remove this post. We have repeatedly asked them to provide evidence that this version of events is in any way untrue, which they have failed to do so. until such time that they do. This post will remain up as a true account of how our member was treated by them. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge's Ice Cream, episode 353. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please do poke the like button, and if you would like early access to these videos, you'll get them all on the Monday, you can support me on my Patreon page, which is linked in the description. And you can do that for as little as $1 or more a month. Okay, no other business today as far as I know. So let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is, what is your most, I didn't even need one reaction whenever something happens in the extreme? For me, it was recently learning that they're apparently making not one but 4 Beatles biopics, one after the other. I'm not sure what the release schedule is going to be like. All made by the same director, telling the life of each individual Beatle. It's an interesting idea, but we've had so many of these things over the years. There's really very little else to be done with that story. So, kind of like, thanks, but I don't need one, let alone 4. Why don't you let me know what your answer is in a comment below. It needn't be a movie, it could be anything. It could be too much mashed potatoes. And before we go, let's have the answer of the day from a previous video. And this question was in relation to how do you approach streaming services? Do you keep them permanently or do you dip in and out? And today's answer comes from Jenna Gets Creative. We've also transitioned to dipping in and out. Right now, our only always subscription is Disney Plus because kiddo. Amazon Prime shipping is the same, if not longer estimates than the spend X for free shipping anyway. Shipping times for me and my location. So I haven't paid for Prime in over a year. Thankfully, where I live, it is worth it. Where I live in Scotland, it is actually. It's kind of worth it for the delivery. And I do use it a lot of years, so when that changes, goodbye Amazon. At that point, it'll no longer be worth it. There are a couple of shows they have that I do watch, Fallout being one of them. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed The Boys as well. I was using it to catch up on Supernatural, because it was a couple of seasons behind. I did eventually catch up with that. But yeah, it's really only 2 shows I can think of where I watch them consistently, and there's only a few episodes of those a year. So as soon as it becomes not worthwhile for the delivery, and I'm sure that day is coming, because it used to be quite good for the groceries, and then they put the price you had to spend to get free delivery for the groceries, and it used to be pretty good for the TV as well. Then they changed how that worked, so you have to then pay additional fee to get rid of the ads. It used to be good for the music you got included with it, without having to upgrade to Music Unlimited. They changed how that works, so you can't really select songs anymore. It seems like everything's on shuffle. It just doesn't work right. Because I did have Music Unlimited, then I downgraded when I realized I basically pay for a music thing with YouTube anyway, YouTube Premium. And I couldn't justify the cost of 2 at that time. Thank you very much for your answer, Jenna Gets Creative. I'm going to stop rambling about Amazon now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.